Caesarean. It's not childbirth. My mom and her guests will be here in half an hour. A real wife cooks even after surgery," her husband shouted. Emily, pale-faced, shuffled to the kitchen. Then there was a knock at the door. Standing at the threshold was her mother, and everything went off her husband's plan. Before we continue, please write in the comments which country you're watching this video from. Enjoy the story. Emily was discharged from the maternity hospital. After the cesarean, she felt like a squeezed lemon. Every movement sent sharp pain through her abdomen, and her head buzzed with exhaustion. All she wanted was to get home, take a shower, and sleep for at least a couple of hours. But reality, as it often does, shattered her dreams. James didn't come to pick her up. Sorry, I'm swamped at work. No way I can get away." His indifferent voice came through the phone. "Just take a taxi? You'll manage, right?" Manage. The word echoed in her mind. Manage after a major surgery with a newborn in her arms. Manage to get home. A lump of resentment lodged in her throat, but she had no energy to argue. She was just too tired. Leaving the maternity hospital, Emily scanned the area for a taxi. The day was unusually sunny, but the light felt alien, as if it belonged to someone else, not to her, weary and worn out. Finally, she flagged down a cab and settled into the back seat, trying to position herself to avoid jostling her stitches. She stayed silent the entire ride, staring out the window at the passing cityscape. Thoughts swirled in her head. Why didn't he come? Doesn't he care? When she reached her building, Emily paid the driver and, with difficulty, climbed out of the car. She headed to the entrance, took the elevator to her floor, and unlocked the door. Silence and dimness greeted her. The apartment was a mess. Scattered belongings, dirty dishes in the sink, dust on the furniture. Home, sweet home, Emily thought with bitter irony. In the living room, she saw Margaret, her mother-in-law, sitting in an armchair, glued to the TV, ignoring her arrival. "Oh, it's you, finally?" Margaret muttered, not looking away from the screen. "What took you so long? I thought you'd show up by evening." Emily silently walked to the nursery, placed the baby in the crib, and sat on the edge, watching his peaceful sleep. He was so tiny, so defenseless. Right now, she felt just as vulnerable. She longed to lie down beside him and sleep, forgetting the world, but her hopes were short-lived. Margaret's voice rang out from the living room. "Emily, what are you dawdling for? I've got guests coming today. You need to set the table. Come on, get moving." Emily closed her eyes, trying to quell the trembling in her body. Guests. A table to set. She felt like she might faint any moment. Gathering the last of her strength, she left the nursery and went to the living room. "Margaret, maybe the guests can wait. I just got home. I need to rest a little," she pleaded softly. Her mother-in-law shot her a scornful look. "Rest? Who's gonna set the table, me? You're young, healthy. Stop acting sick. A cesarean isn't childbirth. You just lay in the hospital for a bit. Everyone does it. Nobody dies." The words hit like a slap in the face. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes. "It's hard for me," she whispered. "Hard for her," Margaret mocked. "And it's easy for me? I'm running around here like a squirrel in a wheel. James is at work, and all you do is lie around and complain. You should be thanking me for helping you." Helping? Emily thought bitterly. Margaret's help consisted of constant criticism and complaints. She never praised Emily, always finding fault, how she cooked, cleaned, or cared for the baby. Margaret believed Emily was useless and lucky to have married James. "The guests will be here soon," Margaret continued. "So get to it. Salads, appetizers, main course, everything needs to be on the table. And don't forget my favorite Napoleon cake. Make it look nice, like in a restaurant, got it? Emily nodded, unable to speak. She felt trapped, her will broken, reduced to a lifeless puppet. She dragged herself to the kitchen, each step intensifying the pain in her abdomen. She wanted to scream, cry, run away, but she knew it was pointless. She was caged with no way out. Suddenly, loud laughter echoed from the hallway. James was back. Emily froze, hoping he'd stand up for her, tell his mother off. But her hopes were dashed. James walked into the kitchen, hugged his mother, and, without even glancing at Emily, asked, "Mom, so everything ready for the guests?" "Emily just got here. She's about to start cooking," Margaret replied. James looked at Emily as if noticing her for the first time. "Oh, it's you? Why so glum? You gave birth, so what? Now it's time to get to work. A cesarean isn't even real childbirth. It's nothing. I'm the one slaving away at work while you sit at home doing nothing." Emily couldn't hold back. Tears streamed down her face. "James, how can you say that? It hurts. I'm exhausted." "Exhausted?" he snapped. "I'm not exhausted. I get tired too, but nobody pities me. Focus on setting the table instead of crying." Emily turned away, trying to stifle her sobs. She felt utterly alone and helpless. Her husband, the person closest to her, didn't understand or support her. It felt like she was trapped in a nightmare with no escape. "What are you bawling about?" Margaret said irritably. "Tears won't help. Go cook. The guests are coming and nothing's ready." Emily wiped her tears and started working. She chopped vegetables, cooked soup, fried meat, ignoring the pain and fatigue. She felt like a robot following a program. Her mind was blank, driven only by the desire for this to end. Memories of her pregnancy flashed through her mind. Going to doctor's appointments alone, James always busy with important matters, Margaret saying, "Once you give birth, everything will be fine. You'll be happy." Happiness was nowhere to be found, just exhaustion, pain, and an overwhelming emptiness. She tried to recall the last time she felt truly happy. It was before the marriage, when she worked at the library, dreaming of the future. Back then, everything seemed possible. Now, she felt cornered. "Don't forget to slice the sausage nicely," Margaret's voice snapped her out of her thoughts. "Make it look good for the guests, and dress the salad with plenty of mayo. It's tastier that way." Emily nodded silently and pulled the smoked sausage from the fridge. Her trembling hands made uneven slices. She tried her best, but Margaret hovered, criticizing every move. "Why are you so slow? The guests won't wait." Emily felt a lump in her throat. Tears burned her eyes, but she held them back, afraid of angering Margaret further. She knew crying would only lead to more accusations of ingratitude. At that moment, James stepped onto the balcony, laughing loudly while talking on the phone with his brother. His voice carried to the kitchen, and Emily couldn't help but listen. "Yeah, can you believe it? The birth was tough, a cesarean, but she pulled through," James said. "The main thing is, we have a son now. The rest is just details." Emily's heart clenched in pain. Details. Her suffering, her pain, her exhaustion, mere details to him. He hadn't even asked how she felt. All that mattered was his son. She looked at the half-sliced sausage, the pile of dirty dishes, Margaret's scowl, and felt she couldn't take it anymore. She couldn't endure, couldn't stay silent, couldn't pretend everything was fine. Dropping the knife, she covered her face with her hands. The tears she'd held back poured out, and she sobbed uncontrollably. "What's this scene?" Margaret shouted. "Why are you crying? The guests are almost here." Emily didn't respond. She stood, shaking with sobs, feeling like she was drowning in despair with no one to help. Suddenly, a sharp pain stabbed her abdomen. She grabbed the table to steady herself, but the pain was so intense she fainted, sliding to the floor. Margaret screamed in panic. Hearing his mother, James dropped his phone and rushed to the kitchen. He saw Emily on the floor and froze. "What happened?" he asked, looking at his mother. "How should I know?" Margaret snapped. "Probably got herself worked up. I told her not to cry." James knelt beside Emily, trying to lift her, but she was too weak to move. Her pale face scared him. "Mom, should we call an ambulance?" he asked. "Why the panic?" Margaret dismissed. "She'll come around. Let her lie there for a bit." James hesitated. He saw Emily was in bad shape, but didn't know what to do. He was used to following his mother's lead. Emily lay on the floor, her strength fading. She could hear James and Margaret's voices, but couldn't make out their words. It felt like she was dying. Then came a knock at the door. Margaret frowned. "Who's that?" "The guests aren't due yet," she grumbled, assuming it was a neighbor. But when she opened the door, she froze. Standing there was Laura, Emily's mother, who had arrived a day early without warning. Laura scanned Margaret, then looked past her to the kitchen. She saw Emily on the floor, James standing over her in confusion, and the mess of dirty dishes on the table. She immediately knew something was wrong. Without a word, Laura strode into the kitchen, her gaze firm and resolute. She knelt beside Emily and took her hand. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" she asked, looking into her daughter's eyes. Emily struggled to open her eyes and saw her mother, her strong, dependable mother. Tears rolled down her cheeks again. She couldn't speak, but her eyes said everything. Laura understood. She stood and looked at James and Margaret with such contempt that they stepped back. Laura, a Russian language and literature teacher with 30 years of experience, had a gaze that pierced the soul. Now it was sharp and scrutinizing. She noticed Emily's pallor, her sunken eyes red from crying, her trembling hands, and the smell of burnt food from the kitchen. "Step aside. I've got this," Laura said firmly. Her voice carried such strength and authority that even Margaret, used to commanding everyone, didn't dare argue. "Oh, who's this?" Margaret said, irritation creeping into her voice. "Laura, what brings you here? We expected you tomorrow." Laura turned to her, and Margaret instinctively stepped back. Laura's gaze was cold and unyielding, like winter ice. "I came for my daughter," she said calmly, "and it looks like I arrived just in time." She looked at Emily again. "Sit down, Emily," she said softly. "Rest." Emily sank onto the couch. Her mother's voice alone eased her burden, as if an invisible weight lifted from her shoulders. Tears welled up again, but this time they were tears of relief. The kitchen reeked of burnt food. Laura opened a window to air it out, then turned off the stove burner. She saw a pot of scorched buckwheat, dirty dishes in the sink, and food scraps on the table, signs of chaos and neglect. Turning to Margaret, who stood in the doorway with her arms crossed, Laura asked, "What's going on here, Margaret?" Her voice was quiet, but carried a steely edge. "What's going on?" Margaret retorted. "Emily just went through childbirth. That's what's going on. She needs rest, but she invited guests. She's just like her mother." Laura studied Margaret, seeing through her domineering nature, her selfishness, her need to control. "Emily just had a cesarean section," Laura said. "It's a serious operation. She needs rest, care, and proper nutrition. Instead, I see chaos and complete indifference." "Indifference?" Margaret exclaimed. "We do everything for her. James works to provide for the family, and I help with the housework." "Help?" Laura asked sardonically. Your help seems to be piling more work on her. James interjected. Mom, why are you starting this? Everything's fine. Emily's just a bit tired. Laura turned to him, her voice heavy with disappointment. James, do you even understand what's happened? You're a father now. You have a son, yet you're acting like a child hiding behind his mother's skirt. James flushed. I'm working, he mumbled. I have to provide for the family. Providing for a family isn't just about money, Laura replied. It's about caring for your loved ones, supporting them, helping them. And what are you doing? Dumping all the responsibility on Emily and your mother. Laura stepped closer to James, looking him in the eye. You need to be a man, James, she said. Take responsibility for your family, or you'll lose them. James looked away, unable to meet her gaze. He knew she was right. He knew he was acting like a coward. Laura turned to Margaret. I'm taking Emily and my grandson to my place, she said firmly. She doesn't belong here. Margaret tried to protest, but Laura cut her off. Don't, Margaret. My decision is final. Emily stays with me until she recovers. Then she'll decide what to do next. She approached Emily, who sat on the couch. Get ready, sweetheart, Laura said softly. We're going home. Emily looked up, her tear-streaked eyes meeting her mother's. Mom, she whispered. Everything will be okay, sweetheart, Laura replied. I promise. James muttered something in his defense, but Laura raised a hand to silence him. Save your words. Actions speak louder, and yours say you're an egoist who only thinks of himself. Margaret tried to defend her son. Laura, don't talk like that. James is tired from work. He tries. Tries? Laura scoffed. Tries to ignore his wife's pain and exhaustion. That's what you call trying? Laura turned to Emily, who stood pressed against the wall like a cornered animal. Sweetheart, come with me. You don't belong here. James tried to stop them. Mom, tell her she can't take Emily. We're a family. Laura looked at him like he was a naive child. A family is where people care for and support each other, not use and humiliate. What I see here isn't a family. It's a prison. And I won't let my daughter stay here. She took Emily's hand. Pack your things. You and the baby are coming with me. Emily looked at her mother, tears in her eyes. She felt broken and empty, yet a spark of hope flickered within her. Hope that things could be different. Hope that she wasn't alone. Margaret tried to intervene. Where are you taking her? This is her home. Laura gave her a withering look. Home is where you're loved and valued. Here, she's nothing. You've lost her. Laura began gathering Emily's and the baby's things. James and Margaret stood stunned, unsure what to do. They were used to Emily's silence and compliance, unprepared for such resistance. Emily mechanically packed essentials, still in disbelief. It felt like a dream, but it was real. Her mother had come to her rescue. When everything was ready, Laura took the baby, and Emily grabbed the bag. They headed for the door. Goodbye, Laura said, looking at James and Margaret. And remember, treat women with respect, or they'll walk away. They left the apartment. Emily trembled but felt a weight lifting. She didn't know what lay ahead, but she knew one thing. She wasn't alone anymore. Her mother was with her. Outside, Emily took a deep breath of fresh air, feeling like she was breathing fully for the first time in ages. They got into Laura's car. Emily secured the baby in the car seat and closed her eyes, feeling exhaustion and relief intertwined. On the way to Laura's house, Emily was silent, watching the passing scenery. It felt like she was leaving not just James and Margaret's apartment, but her entire past life. When they arrived, Emily saw a cozy, bright house with a small garden. Warm light glowed in the windows, an oasis in her desert. Laura helped her carry the baby and bags inside. The house was calm, smelling of fresh baking and herbs. Emily felt the tension slowly leave her body. Laura settled the baby in a crib and sat Emily on a soft couch. "Rest, sweetheart," she said. "Everything will be okay." Emily looked at her mother and smiled, feeling safe for the first time in ages. She lay on the couch and fell into a deep, peaceful sleep. When Emily woke, the house was quiet. It was morning. She felt rested and refreshed. She got up and went to the kitchen, where Laura was preparing breakfast. "Good morning," Emily said. "Good morning, sweetheart," Laura replied, smiling. "How did you sleep?" "Well," Emily said. "Thank you, Mom." Laura set a plate of hot porridge and a cup of fragrant tea in front of her. "Eat. Build your strength," she said. "You need it now." Emily ate, savoring every bite, as if it were the best meal of her life. After breakfast, Laura suggested she take a shower and change into comfortable clothes. Emily happily agreed. After the shower, she felt even better. She put on a soft robe and joined Laura in the living room, where her mother was knitting beside the sleeping baby. "Mom, I don't know what I'd do without you," Emily said. "I'll always be here, sweetheart," Laura replied. "You're not alone." Emily hugged her mother, overwhelmed with gratitude and happiness. Just then, the baby woke and began to cry. Emily picked him up and held him close, feeling a surge of maternal love. She looked at her mother and smiled. "Everything will be okay," Emily said. "I know," Laura replied, returning the smile. Emily held her baby, gazing at his tiny face. She knew challenges lay ahead, but she also knew she'd manage, because she wasn't alone. She had her mother and her child, and that was what mattered most. Silence, peace,